Bright and early. Thanks for coming in. So this is lessons learned from helping port the top contrib projects to Drupal 10. My name is Matt Glauman. I'm a principal software engineer at Acquia and also the maintainer of PHP Stand Drupal and a major contributor to Drupal Rector. Hopefully you've had some nice experience using those tools. We're going to talk about them a little bit today. But first, who has made their project sites Drupal 10 ready so far?
All
Okay.
of them?
Ish. How many have started? Or at least like, it's not all the way down. Ah, okay, there. We got more people there. Okay, good. Started. I know it's not always the easiest process, and we're going to be talking about ways that we can make that better. All right, so let's go for another like sub-audience of that. Who has made contributed modules Drupal 10 ready? Okay, how about half the people that have worked on the Drupal 10 site means you probably had to make a patch or work on something. Well, some good news is that as of April 12th, 2,900 projects are stable and ready for D10. 1,500 need stable releases. So some are on dev, some say RC. Just if you're a module maintainer, don't be scared of stable releases. Just go for it. Releases are cheap. And then there's still a handful that need work done. This is taken from dev.acquia.com. Under resources, there's like a deprecation dashboard. Maybe you've seen this, maybe you haven't, but it's a cool way that shows the entire ecosystem's results. And I'll talk about that page a little bit later. So this is lessons learned from my team, and we tracked over 180 contributed modules as part of our Drupal 10 readiness initiative. As part of that, we were credited on over 90 modules getting to Drupal 10 ready, and 3 Drupal core issues, and I actually really want to take a minute to pause about the Drupal core issues. It's important to work on your modules early so you can find problems in the next major version. Drupal 9 deprecated temporary tables in your database, like MySQL temporary tables. It was removed in Drupal 10. Search API DB relies on that to work. So, as part of our D10 readiness for Acquia Search, we need to get Search API D10 ready. Acquia Search uses Solr. We don't use the database, but we got that functionality back in core to unblock Search API. So that was like a really great effort. And then also 2 things around CK Editor 5, because of one of my modules, the DAM module, does a lot of CK Editor 5 stuff. So you get there, and then also the Entity Embed module. Needed the CK Editor 5 plugins, needed to allow derivatives to work. So by working on module readiness, you uncover the things that aren't quite there ready in the next major version. So it's really important to work on those things. And so this was our goal, like our mission statement we did this from Q3 to Q4, so it was like June to December of 2022. Ensure all of Acquia's product modules and dependencies were ready for the release of Drupal 10. And then we're like, oh yeah, let's include the top used modules as well. Like, let's make sure they get over. Like, I know Sasha took care of token and redirect, but we were gonna help track and make sure and like give assistance if needed. So, what team is this? It's Acquia's Drupal integration team. We maintain Acquia's product modules. So, Acquia Connector, Acquia Search, Acquia DAM, Media Acquia DAM, things like that. You might be more familiar with the DAT team, which used to be Octo, like Drupal Acceleration team. The Drupal Acceleration team, they work on Drupal core. We are in the contrib space. And I really wanted to highlight the team that was part of this effort, because hopefully you've seen their names on some of the modules, and it was Acquia kind of colliding on this that made it all possible. Jacob Perry was one of the leads, and I called him our semantic versioning champion and customer experience. We had lots of arguments about releases and semantic versioning, which I'll talk about there, to try to make sure that end users had the best experience. Then there's myself. I worked more on Drupal Rector and PHP Stand Drupal and trying to figure out how to make everything automatic and robotic for you in this process. Attila, Abhishek, Balint, and Nate. They were like our worker bees. Like, they're the ones that swarmed the issues, and Balint is the one that really spent like a month on Entity Embed and CK Editor 5 and Wim Lears trying to make sure that Entity Embed could be possible even in Drupal 10. Now, here's a question. Did you know that there's something big happening next year? Drupal 11 is coming in 2024. There's a policy issue. It's D.O/I 3330791. The plan is for August 2024 with a fallback to December. Now, mind you, the same thing that happened in Drupal 10. It was originally slated for August, but due to CK Editor, it fell back to Drupal or to December. Same thing for Drupal 11 just next year. So we got what, year and a half, which means we've got like probably 8-9 months before we should start thinking about Drupal 11 readiness. Yeah, so it's 1 year away. And I'm not actually scared or worried about the fact that there's another like readiness initiative. And I want this session to kind of help alleviate any fears you have in ways that we can make the upgrade from Drupal 10 to 11 even easier than it was from 8 to 9 and 9 to 10. So what have we learned from this process of Drupal 9 to Drupal 10, and how can we make upgrading to Drupal 11 even easier? So one thing we need to do is look back at the changes that went from 9 to 10. You know, maybe you're like, I'm going to go upgrade my site, and I'm just going to fix some deprecations. But there's more. So there was a lot of major version bumps in our dependencies. We had, of course, Drupal 9 to 10, everybody's dependency. PHP from 7.4 minimum supported to 8.1. Now, technically, people should have already been on PHP 8 because 7.4 with end of life. But let's be real, there's still sites running PHP 5.2 out there. Like, people don't upgrade stuff when they need to. PHP unit went from 8.5 to 9. Guzzle 6 to 7, which was a whole thing of itself as well. And then Symfony 4 to 6, we skipped 5. Like, Drupal 10 Alpha 1 supported Symfony 5, and then they dropped it. So there's like that little gap of a bridge. And then, of course, CKit Editor 4 to 5, which was one reason that the Drupal 10 release was delayed. And something new that we didn't have with Drupal 9 is JavaScript changes and library removals. jQuery once, you know, the library that everybody writes so that way Drupal Ajax doesn't put something on the page 5,000 times. That was moved to a new once library that doesn't have a dependency on Drupal core. So that was a big change. jQuery UI, gone, moved to Contrib. I don't know how many people were aware of that, but I know that caught us at 9.3 or 9.4 going, the Contrib modules for jQuery UI aren't even D10 ready, but you can't depend on them because they're deprecated libraries. And then Backbone and Underscore, these are like libraries not everybody using Contrib. I did because, of course, I found a way. And these weren't able to be removed yet because it was really entangled in our JavaScript. You know, they're libraries from like 2012. But they were marked internal, which means that you shouldn't use them because they'll eventually go away. All of this is pain from a long Drupal 8 lifecycle. I couldn't get my speaker notes up, but Drupal 8 was released, was it like November 2017? No, before that. It was a 6-year life. It is on the slide. There we go. Way to go, me. So November 2015 is when Drupal 8 released. I remember being at MidCamp as like the last like rush for this to happen. And then 8.9. Whatever patch version, the last patch version, was released November 2021. That is 6 years for software to exist and the world change around it. So yeah, like Drupal 9 was a 2-year window to say, oh, we need to upgrade and fix everything. So I don't think Drupal 10 to 11 will be as bad because we're not going to have such a large amount of cleanup to have to do. So, like I said, this is a lot of work, a lot of changes, and we needed to track our progress. 180 modules. That's a lot of things. That's a lot of patches. There is that readiness dashboard I showed up. That's hosted on dev.acquia.com. It's maintained by Gabor on the DAT team, our community manager. I'm sure many of you have seen Gabor. But the way that it works is there's a Jenkins job that scans all the contrib projects on Drupal.org, and it pushes that to an artifact, and then you got to download the artifact, and you got to upload it, and then you get a chart. But that job was very fragile. Sometimes it didn't work. That involved pinging Mixologic from the DAs and, hey, can you run this on top of getting GitLab ready? And it wasn't very active. Like, you can't track patches on it. Like, you can't go to an issue and say, oh, there is a D10 patch. Incorporate it to this result. And actually, the code for this dashboard is available at /project deprecation_status if you want to check it out. And I have the asterisk because Bjorn stabilized this project data sourcing onto GitLab CI. So now we can do it weekly, and it doesn't really fail. There's a few hiccups, but it's much more streamlined. And I'll be talking about that later on too. So this is how we did it. We decided up front that we need to track this progress, and we needed it to be very instantaneous since it was going to move fast. So we built a canary. Or at least that's what we call it, like a canary in a coal mine, because our jobs would fail and the site would fail if there were things that we said were D10 ready, but actually failed checks. So this was invented at DrupalCon Portland when I was at the booth with Jacob, and we're like, well, we know we got to do this in 2 months. How are we going to do it? So we use composer meta packages to group modules. So we have a stable meta package, dev, and unstable. And anything that's unstable has to have a stable release, otherwise the validation fails. Dev means it's a dev release or patched. And then unstable means that it's not going to pass. But we had CI jobs that would say, okay, remove all the unstable projects, run upgrade status, and verify. We also had another one because Guzzle 7 upgrade, because what some modules used Guzzle 7, Guzzle 6, or used a dependency that was a hard set in Guzzle 6, or PSR bridges. Guzzle 7 was a kind of a really big knot to untangle, so we did a job that just said, composer, why not Guzzle 7? So we could go nudge. Like, I think Content Hub, the Content Hub team had a library that needed to be fixed. We're like nudging them, like, hey, can you support both? So that way we had daily jobs that would tell us if things are passing or not, what modules we need to go back and open new issues for, and also distribute it to our entire organization. And we could take patches, apply them, it would show us how many patches were applied and what things need to be fixed. So that's how we were tracking it. Let's walk through the process of fixing a module for Drupal 10. Right, so step 1 is you scan it. You got to find the deprecations and changes. For this, you're using upgrade status, or you're using Drupal check, or you've got PHP-Stand running on your own, which leverages PHP-Stand Drupal. Great, found the problems. Now you fix them. Those little error messages say how you should fix it. You can do that manually, or you can use Drupal Rector for PHP-based problems. So you've made the changes, you've got a patch up. Now you just need to get somebody to commit it. And they did. So, woohoo, right? The module's Drupal 10 ready, the fixes got committed, and it's compatible with Drupal 10. You can wipe your hands clean and walk away. But wait, there's more. Is it really ready? So did you test that change on Drupal 9.4 and 9.5 and Drupal 10? Because I've got a good guess, if you fix everything for Drupal 10, it's broken on 9.4. Because by fixing deprecations that were introduced in 9.5, you're using code that was added in 9.5 that doesn't exist in 9.4. So you broke the module. And there could also be new deprecations. Acquia Dam used Popper.js, and Popper.js was ripped out at the final hour of 9.5. So I thought we were Drupal 10 ready, but we weren't, because as soon as you went to go use CK Editor, it crashed because Popper.js was removed, and I didn't catch that. And then also, like, a release needs to be made. I didn't talk about a release, and that's like our biggest blocker. Things get merged, and then a release never comes because you might fix Drupal 10 early, and like, I don't want to make a release yet. What if there's more changes? Like I said, Git tags are cheap, releases are cheap, release often, just don't let it languish. So that's the process and some of the problems there. So here are what we learned. Here's some things we learned about this process. Tooling. This falls in my realm. We need improved tooling to facilitate these required changes, and the tooling gets out of date. Another question for the audience: who tried to use Rector and then it just exploded or wouldn't install with Composer because of who knows why? Handful. Yeah, because Rector changes like 10 times a day, and sometimes it's broken because it is like beta software, and Thomas does great work, but it's really hard to have a tool that integrates with it because it's always changing. So about 3 times a year, that's my main contribution to Rector is like, okay, does it still run? No, it doesn't. So our tooling can get out of date really fast. Say PHP-Stand isn't as bad, but it is a major problem if we're not maintaining our tooling regularly. So then we also got to talk about the cadence. We act like Drupal 10, 9, all these things like are coming out of like left field and we didn't know. But every 6 months, there's a release of Drupal core that tells us things are deprecated. But we don't fix things until the last minute. So why don't we should set like a bigger cadence before every major release. We just need to do it like at every minor release, and at least like get the patches in. But the problem is this whole backwards compatibility. That's a lot of work, and we're going to find another way that we can improve that. Best practices. There are no best practices. Like, there's no doc you can link to a maintainer, because I feel like that was part of our work, is we found like the ImageMagick module and like its dependency, the person did all these like breaking changes and then created a new major version and said, I'm good to go. But you can't get from 2 to 3 that way unless you upgrade that module with Drupal core, which could cause other issues. So it'd be great, like if Jacob and I are talking to somebody and they go, "You're full of it." Like, look, there's actually community doc where we decided these are the best ways to do things, and this is how you should resolve these problems. We don't have that yet, and yes, it's open source. Maybe I should have opened that by now. That is my fault. So if anybody feels empowered by that, come talk to me, and we can actually make that happen. Which ties into coordination. It is very ad hoc, and it'd be nice if we had, I know everybody's doing this in the free time. I don't have all the time in the world, but some kind of committee that was just always active. It's getting better, and it seems to be that way. There is a D11 readiness channel already on Slack, but just some way of coordinating a little bit more of the efforts. So let's dive into some more specifics that were covered, like backwards compatibility. So with Drupal core support, there's technically 3 versions of Drupal core supported at any single time. Right now, and modules should, they don't have to, but they should support all those versions. Some might say, well, only 2. I only want a year worth of Drupal support. That's up to the maintainer, but ideally should support at least those 3. So like right now, Drupal 10.0 is available. So is 9.5 and 9.4. We have 1 year of Drupal code that is still under security support. 9.4 drops security support in June when 10.1 is released. But that still means we have 6 months of Drupal 9 code, like one minor release, that still should be supported by modules. So yeah, so as I said before, fixing the deprecation uses new code that didn't exist. So if you fix the deprecations in 9.5, you run it at 9.4, it goes, this service doesn't exist because it's still a function. So we need these modules to provide backward compatibility layers for people. So it doesn't matter what version you've installed. I found modules that support 8.9 to 9 to 10. It's possible. There are modules that can work, and even complex modules that could support Drupal 8, which just is gone. So these backward compatibility layers help ease end users, most of you, with your process of upgrading your sites. So here's one example. In Drupal 9.1, early days, they changed the signature for Event Dispatcher to match what Symfony did to be forward compatible. Now, you don't need a backwards compatibility layer, but you would get a ton of deprecation messages all the time and clog up your logs. So what we did is we compared the version number and said, hey, if it's greater than or equal to 9.1 for Drupal, put the event object first, and then the name. Otherwise, so at this time, 8.8 and 8.9 were, 8.9, 9.0, 9.1. So if you're on 8.9 or 9.0, do the old way that has always been. So these are what I mean by backwards compatibility layers. Another one was in 9.4, a kind of quirky one, was Git implementations was deprecated for invoke all with. Again, the same thing. It's does the method exist on the module handler service? Great, use it. If not, fall back to the old way. And this allows your module to work with Drupal 9 anything to Drupal 10. Now, these backward compatibility layers, I had to go back every single time and look it up in our code to think about what we did. And I think all change records should have this in here. The change record says before, after. I think as part of the sign-off, and I don't know how to make this like an official policy, if you will, but if we have that, the signed-off published change record should have that example of how to add it to your module with backwards compatibility. So module maintainers, copy, paste, tweak. Now they don't have to think that cognitive load is gone. Or contributors, right? Contributors want to help fix modules. It can now be a junior task. One thing we realized is a lot of this work is like a junior mid-level developer fix. But you end up needing senior plus people because there's nuances. But speaking of nuances, let's talk about releases and semantic versioning. Again, another place that we need guidelines and recommendations for. Semantic versioning, already, like nobody can agree on what it really means. PHP says it's semantically versioned. It's kind of. It's a very loose concept. But with the guidelines that we want to set, when you make a new major version of your module, when you have breaking changes from Symfony or other dependencies, like Guzzle 6, 7, if you have a dependency that doesn't bridge between the two, an example of a major version, sorry, if you're on like the old version of 8.x, whatever, it would be 8.x3 from 2, or 2.0 to 3.0. A minor version bump is when you're adding support for a new version of Drupal core, but while you're doing that, you're going to drop a previous version. So I have an example that'll show that, but adding support for a new major, and at the same time you're dropping a previous minor support. So old way would be 2.8 to 2.9, because technically that dot is considered a minor in the old ways. Or here would be 2.0 to 2.1. And then patch releases, we saw so many people make major version upgrades because they added Drupal 10 support. If you use backward compatibility layers, it should just be a patch release. It's like a bug fix. Like, it's a small change. Don't make major releases and cause your end users pain when trying to upgrade their modules. Or if your module is a dependency of another module, and now that module needs to figure out how to make it work. We saw a lot of that as well. So again, adding a new Drupal core version, if you use backwards compatibility layers, it's a patch version. It's a small fix. And with that, that's where you need to create releases that bridge versions of Drupal. So that way we don't have the problem of, I need to get to Drupal 10, but I can't just say Composer upgrade Drupal core. It's Drupal core and this module and that module. Like, try to make it so they don't need to upgrade everything at once. So an example of that would be, you have version 2 that supported Drupal 9. And then eventually you're like, you know what, I'm going to drop 9.0, 9.1, 9.2, 9.3 is my baseline. For that, you create a minor version. And then for 2.1, or for 2.2, you're like, actually, I'm going to drop to just 9.4. So I need 9.4, 9.5, and Drupal 10 done. So you create a new minor, 2.2, that supports that range. And then you decide, you know what, I'm going to create a new major version of 3, because I want all the goodies of PHP 8.1 and Drupal 10. I don't want any backwards compatibility stuff. I want all the cool stuff. The main point is that this 2.2 allows people to use their Drupal 9 site, upgrade your module, and then upgrade to 10 and choose to get to the next major version. It's a seamless process for them, and not a Composer nightmare that says, cannot resolve packages, all the reasons. And also, supporting a new PHP version isn't a breaking change. Like, just because you adopt PHP 8.1 doesn't mean you're going to start using annotations and union types and whatever else. You can just support 8.1, fix some deprecations, and then do another major release that kills off like PHP 7 code. Like, it doesn't always need to be a drastic change by supporting something new. Which again is why we need these guidelines, because it's a conversation that just kept going and going. It can be very exhausting, like mentally. And then we got a fun one. What about adding dependencies to fix deprecations in libraries? This is a good question. jQuery UI was removed. Do you make a minor version to add that dependency, or is it a patch version because Composer, so magic, or is it a major version? I don't know. I've asked a few of these questions to like the Laravel community, and this one's kind of out the door because it's really unique to Drupal. Jacob wrote a great blog post. I do have the slides online because Medium, or you can get the slides from the node on MidCamp. There's no like short URLs for Medium, so there's a bear to look at. But Jacob wrote a blog post called "Don't Go Making Major Version Changes." I wanted him to title it to like that TLC song, "Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls." So that's how you remember not to always make a major version. Then there's also the challenge, like for releases, of getting maintainers to commit fixes. We have lots of modules. I'm guilty. Yep, I wrote that. EXIF orientation, totally forgot I maintained it, created it. Lucas Hedden was like, hey, can I become a co-maintainer to merge and release this? I was like, yes, thank you. I forgot that I'm a maintainer for this. So getting them to commit, or there's the whole commit, I'll come back later and release. Tick tock tock, release never actually happens. Or you have a maintainer that can merge, but can't do releases, because we do have that kind of granularity. For that, there is the Drupal 10 Readiness Project Adoption Initiative. So there's actually a group that's out there. Lucas is one of them. He sent me a nice email that said, appreciate your work in the past, but can I be a short-time maintainer to help get this for Drupal 10? Really nice way that they're doing things, and it was something we were kind of missing from Drupal 8 to Drupal 9. This is a new one. So yeah, JavaScript fixes. There's no tools. We have nothing, and when I went on the internet, I was like, somebody's got to do like a rector for JavaScript. Well, there is kind of. There's a few tools. The one that I found was JS CodeShift, which is a code mod toolkit by Facebook. Here's a gobbledygook example, but it takes JavaScript, parses it to an abstract syntax tree, and then you can rewrite your code in place. I did an experiment on my GitHub, so it's mglom and /jQuery once JS CodeShift. It worked. I used it. I couldn't figure out how to package it as a standalone, but ironically, Theo, Nod, used the same tool in the Drupal core issue that migrated Drupal core away from jQuery once to the once library. And he shared me a link, and there's a patch. And there's the JS CodeShift tooling in that patch. But then it got removed. So he used it for Drupal core, and then Contrib had to like go write its own. So the question is, should Drupal core provide these scripts? Like if Drupal core builds a script to migrate away, should it be available or made in such a way that Contrib can use it, or is it another standalone tool that somebody has to maintain? Maybe, I'm not sure yet because we haven't had enough of this to really know, but Drupal 10 is adding more JavaScript deprecations around like theming functions. So this is the new era of tooling, so if anybody is hot to trot on JavaScript, it could be an interesting way to contribute and help make major versions possible. Not possible, easier. So PHP stand learnings, this is my domain. So I gave a talk at Florida Drupal Camp last year, I believe it was last year, about how we need to start doing scans at level 2. Because right now, Drupal check, upgrade status to level 0. Basically it says PHP stand, I don't care about anything else, just tell me the deprecations. Where level 1 and 2 say, this method doesn't exist. You're talking to something that is imaginary. And we're silencing those right now. So here's hopefully an example that can be seen on the screen. So hook node insert, right? It does entity interface node. It says you're going to receive an entity of entity interface. Great. Nodes implement that. It passes. But there was a deprecated method in Drupal 8 called get revision author. At level 0, PHP stands like, yeah, it looks good. But if you turn it to level 2, it says, hold on. Get revision author is an undefined method. It doesn't exist in entity interface. So you'd go, oh, you're right. So you'd edit your code and say, actually, hook, it's node entity interface I'm getting, because there's no harm in changing your types on hooks unless you do the wrong one. Now PHP is going to go, oh, get revision author. Yes, that is a method. That error's gone, but no, it shows up, the deprecation. And with 8.9 to 10, there's so many bug reports thrown at me because of this. So that's why I believe that we need to start doing level 2. Which I did at the end of Portland. Drupal check now runs at level 2. Unfortunately, that means maintainers got a lot of patches that had extra like type changes in it when there was maybe no Drupal 10 deprecations. Because if you tell a junior, run Drupal check, fix what it says, go forward, they're not going to know like actually this change is kind of junk. Like yes, it's a good improvement, but it's not unblocking Drupal 10. So now maintainers are getting these patches and they're looking at me being like, what's this extra noise? But again, I think we'll get there and it will be useful. It's going to make life easier in the long run. There's custom rules that PHP Stand Drupal provides. This goes to the whole like needing to have updated tooling. One example is deprecated global constants. Global constants aren't available via the reflection API, so we have a custom rule that has to track them. So if a constant is deprecated in Drupal core, I need to know the change record happened so I can copy it, or usually Gabor holds me pretty good to that, like tracks it. My favorite change of all is that content entities on entity queries must call access check. It can't be implicitly implied anymore. You need to explicitly do it. That was about 6 months of work to get PHP Stand Drupal to actually scan and recognize these, to find out that actually it should exclude config entities, and there's bugs on config entity count queries. And then also, like we deprecated the usage of Symfony CMF routing. So this meant like, this was tricky. We were going to remove a dependency, but we couldn't mark them as deprecated because we don't own the code. So I had to write custom code that checked for instances and usages of that code and said, hey, this is going to go away in a few months. And then a few things with like renders, arrays, and callbacks. Upgrade status. I actually didn't have anything for this, and then at the final hour I realized, what if upgrade status could say, hey, jQuery UI was removed, you need to add jQuery UI or whatever modules as dependencies to your composer.json. This was a gap, and I think it would have been great if we made that patch for upgrade status. I can't remember if I made an issue yet for it, but that way if anything in Drupal core gets moved to a contrib, upgrade status can warn you better. It might already have a warning, but maybe it can make it a little bit larger. And then also allowing upgrade status to run at PHP stand level 2. Make that a flag, because earlier somebody brought up that feature, and I think that would be nice. Like, upgrade status is a user interface for PHP stand plus more. Rector, my favorite tool. It's great for end users. I hope you all use it and love it because it's just bam, get your site ready without having to think for the most part. It's really horrible. I say rough, but honestly, it's really, really horrible for contrib. And why? Backwards compatibility. Rector's a one-way street. It comes in and says, I fix you, I fix you, I fix you, you're good to go. It's very opinionated in that fashion, and that's a good thing for the tool, but it would be great if it could provide backward compatibility to the fixes, and if we could put those behind a feature flag. So when you run it for your site, it doesn't add backwards compatibility because your site has one version of Drupal core. You're not running multiple. But if we had a flag that said, hey, this is for contrib, make sure the patch supports the previous versions. Otherwise, it's manual intervention. Maintainers get a patch, they can't accept it. They've got to go look up the old way, edit the patch. It's extra work, and it'd be great to remove that extra work so everybody's a little bit happier. So I wrote a blog post about this. Oh wait, this doesn't have the blog post on it. But I opened an issue, seeing if we could automate this. I spent about 4 hours on it, and it is not going well. But I am not turned away from it. I still think it can be possible. It's just, it requires a lot of trickery. And then the project update bot. Are most people familiar with what the project update bot is, or have you heard of it before? Okay, handful. Okay, so I think I covered it here. So the project update bot is an automated bot that goes for Drupal.org and takes patches generated to fix modules and distributes them to every module. So you'll see a lot of it's like Drupal 9 readiness, Drupal 10 readiness. Soon, I hope, we'll see Drupal 11 readiness. And I created a little workflow that kind of walks through it. And actually, I forgot that the update bot is actually not much of the process. It just consumes an artifact and posts it. Earlier, I brought up that Jenkins job that did the analysis and created an artifact. We'd have to tap Mixologic, like, hey, run it. It would go scan all the contrib from Drupal.org. It then runs upgrade status to find out what the reports are and says, did this module have any errors reported? No? Great, it moves on. If yes, it has code that fixes info.yaml and composer.json issues. It then runs Rector, and when that's all done, it collects the patches and puts that into the artifact. So there's an artifact that's available. If you want to go find your patch, it's really hard to go dig through like the tens of thousands of files, but your patch is there. The update bot is a tool that just downloads that and then creates issues or updates issues and puts those patches on Drupal.org for modules. So this has now been moved from Jenkins to a project on Drupal.org, a general project called Project Analysis by Bjorn. So that whole instability and like kicking Jenkins and hoping it works, it's now on GitLab CI. So anybody can contribute to this. Like a bunch of jobs were failing due to BC Math for Commerce. So Drupal Commerce was just crashing the ship. Well, now anybody could have, like we did, we edited a Docker file and said add BC Math extension. Great, the community can now improve this. It's not locked away and managed just by the DA. So there's actually no difference to this workflow except for the fact that it's on GitLab. And I'm hoping that we can start to see improvements to this. This part, the update bot, is closed source because it talks about how to automate going on Drupal.org and uploading files. So the idea is, let's not make that public. Yes, if you're bored enough, you can figure it out, but let's not necessarily encourage that. If you're curious about the update bot and you're going to DrupalCon, Bjorn has a session called Project Update Bot, The Road to Drupal 11. we're going to figure out like the next steps. I won't be at DrupalCon because I have conflicts, but I will be excited to watch the video of this, and it'll be really interesting to see how we can make life a lot easier. But the problem is, this process is only as good as our tooling, which kind of we keep coming back to. Like the update bot can only deliver patches as well as we create, or as well as the tooling provides. So again, Rector needs to provide backwards compatibility for these patches to work at scale. Also, back to the question, can we automate JavaScript fixes? Could project analysis also run JS code shift to deliver patches for like jQuery once type things? How amazing would that be if your patch fixes your info.yaml, your libraries.yaml, and then the JavaScript? And it really is just a good to go, though who knows what backwards compatibility with JavaScript looks like. That's a whole other thing. And then automating dependency changes. I opened an issue for this, that if it detects it from upgrade status, that it should generate that as a patch. But the main thing is like we can just keep moving forward and onwards to Drupal 11. I'm really looking forward to this next round. I kind of dreaded it when it was November. I was like, man, we got to do this in a year and a half. I can't, but I'm feeling much more confident because we have better tooling, better processes. If you think about it, we didn't have to do this for Drupal 8 because that was like a hard fork from D7 to 8. Drupal 9, 8 to 9 was our first rodeo. Drupal 8 lived for a long time. This is only our second time doing it as a community, and I think that's pretty good considering that no other community has this issue. Laravel doesn't have as many dependencies, and it's kind of like a you snooze, you lose, like whatever. Symfony is a framework, and they do more releases more often in their minor versions to drop things, so we're unique, and I think we're handling it the best we can. So, thanks for coming. I hope this was informational on how we're hoping to improve the contrib experience. Because if we make the contrib experience better, that means you, when you do your client sites, your business sites, it makes your upgrade process even easier. So thanks for coming. And then any questions?
How can, so Project Update Bot is fantastic, I think. Do you foresee it being possible or beneficial to make it easier for contrib projects to run Rector much more regularly?
Yes.
So we're not waiting until the point when we start the update bot for Drupal 11 and we can get ahead of this.
Yeah. So I'll reiterate for the recording. So the question is there a way that modules could run Rector sooner and not need the update bot?
Yes, but I know any module could configure it all themselves, but I'm specifically curious if you see a benefit
Automated on Drupal. Yes.
In some way, yeah.
So to automate it, and this is one reason I'm glad that project analysis isn't on Jenkins because, right, Neil, are you helping with the GitLab? You're doing the GitLab stuff and Ryan together, right? It's not just one of you?
Ryan wants to work for Linux Foundation.
Oh.
It's just me.
Okay, never mind. Didn't know that. All right. So the fact that project analysis is off Jenkins and on GitLab means that Neil doesn't have to worry about tinkering with Jenkins. And we're working on getting to GitLab for everybody. So the main idea was then you can just focus on GitLab so everybody could do it, which means that you could have Rector run on a cron, like weekly. It says, hey, GitLab CI, run this weekly, run Rector. If there's a patch, add it as an artifact. So when the run fails, you go to GitLab CI to that job, you click download artifact, bam, you got a patch. I don't know about the whole automating it as a merge request, maybe. Now it's more difficult because we do issue forks and the whole bit, and I don't know how GitLab CI on self-hosted handles secrets to be able to open your own merge request for your own repo. But once we move everything to GitLab CI, that door is wide open. That the update bot may not be needed because it's a GitLab CI job that, again, documentation and guidelines, it's copy this YAML and go. And to be fair, I haven't looked a lot at the GitLab stuff, so maybe there are ways to automate that, but I foresee it being maybe for Drupal 11, for 12, when we do 11 to 12 as the next one in 4 years, whatever it will be. GitLab is just churning out patches for us. We don't need the update bot. And we don't even need project analysis because it's all decentralized. Any other questions?
I was just going to offer a suggestion with maintainers that have a library dependency or something that needs to be regularly updated. if they make like a YouTube video of them going through the process and post that and link that on their project page, then including the testing and everything, then somebody else could look at it and see if they could apply it and create an issue and then test it, and even if they don't know how to fix the things, they could put the information and say, hey, I tested it, here's the results I got, things like that, and take a lot off the maintainer that way.
Yeah, so the statement was about if we could get project maintainers to help detail updating those dependencies and the list and the steps to verify for like JavaScript libraries, so that way when it needs to be changed, anybody could go through and watch it. I would say like words over video, because I know I can't watch video. I'm not able to.
Well, video's
With that-
easy to do, like,
Yeah.
while you're doing it.
But it comes down to, and like documentation's hard. Like just holding yourself accountable to write things. I'm bad at it. I'll admit it. Like I should do it way more, and I don't. But we should do it more. Any other questions? All right.
Have you looked at like other like WordPress or something like that might have like a similar problem?
The only thing I can say about WordPress is I created a plugin called Facebook Albums that got shut down because of trademark in 2012, and people still email me because it works on the latest WordPress.
Wow.
So WordPress doesn't have this problem. I must not have used like PHP 5 stuff in there, or these people are running PHP 5. I don't know.
They're running.
But they're different. So yeah, sorry. The question, just to reiterate the way I said that, is I was asked if WordPress has the same issues, and
Any other software
no,
product?
because we're weird. Like we're Snowflake, and a weird in a good way. Like I said, Laravel, it's all packages. Everybody builds their own UI, so it's not like render array deprecations or things like that. Like in Laravel, like you take the framework and then you build something custom every time. Symfony, same way. Maybe Symfony, like the full like CMF, like their full package, maybe. But they do that with like PHP Unit Bridge, which is a big thing. But no, we're unique.
I work for an agency, and we're trying to figure out how to think about major version upgrades in terms of how we bill that to our clients in the future. So we have flat fees for regular we do it quarterly Drupal updates and then emergency updates that we do for our clients. For Drupal 8 to 9, we billed that hourly because that wasn't included in it. We're planning on doing that for 9 to 10 as well, though we expect that to be much smaller. So for 10 to 11, we're like, well, that seems like that's going to be even smaller, and then 11 to 12, that could be even smaller than that. And we don't have any plans right now, but we're kind of just wondering, like, it almost doesn't seem fair. Like, could this be something that could there be a point where like 10 to 11 or 11 to 12 is as small as a routine composer update?
Yeah. So the question was about being in an agency, and before like 8 to 9, it was normally we do slotted like block hours, but this was we just said hourly time and materials because we don't know.
Yeah.
9 to 10 that way, but it looks a lot smaller. And will we get insignificant? So it's a minor version. I mean, that's what Dries says every time, and I see him on the Dries note being like, "It'll be the easiest upgrade ever, Rector, and it's automated."
It's like, how do we communicate to clients? How do we know what to expect?
Yeah, I know what I would do, because it isn't a minor version, because there's Composer, right? There's info YAML and Composer constraints.
Yeah.
So I would still just tell them, like, it's not a month. It's almost like if you could say, look, we're going to take 1 quarter, but it's not going to be like a whole quarter of time, but we're going to do it in Q3, let's say. And that way we know everything is ready, or Q4, because if that's a release. And just say, we're going to take a few hours a week and just kind of check on it. And our module's upgraded. Oh, it's more about finding your red flags of, we can't get to Drupal 10 because of this module, and documenting that, which I do have a tool that I didn't put in here because this isn't about like Drupal 10 upgrade, Composer lenient package, and it lets you bypass Composer constraints.
We just started using that.
Yeah, okay, great. Which, credit to the Symfony team, that package that lets you just install any Drupal module regardless of its constraints was built out of talks with, I think his name's Nicholas from Symfony, and I think somebody from, not Typo 3, another one. It was like a little round table at DrupalCon. So. Yeah, so
Still a lot of unknowns.
a lot of unknowns, but it is getting easier and smaller. That, you know, that's what Dries wants, though. He wants it to be like a minor bump, and I think we're getting to that. But I would still just try to budget like a window of time, because you need to check. You don't want to check everything in 1 month, because then you're going to, oh, we got this. But if you can be prepared, you know, we got 2 months to kind of tap some people on the shoulders. And that.
With regard, I don't know if there's a single right answer here, but I'm curious to your thoughts for contrib maintainers and how they should think about dropping support for unsupported versions of Drupal, so versions before the most recent 3. You noted that, you know, it's great to provide backwards compatibility and workarounds, but how do you think about striking the balance once it crosses out of those latest 3? Say, like, it's not worth it anymore, or we get more benefit by dropping that support? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the question is about when you drop the unsecured versions of minor versions of Drupal core. I personally think you can just drop them as a patch release because they're insecure. Not like, oh, 9.2 just became insecure, I'm going to drop it. It's like 9.1 then. Like, fine, you really shouldn't be on 9.1. You could be nice and do a minor version for that just to help, you know. If you do the minor version, then Composer might prevent it from being installed on, well, actually it'll always prevent it because it does dependency resolution. It comes down to what makes you feel comfortable, but I would do it in a patch release because it's like, it's insecure code, it's 2 pass, and I guess I would do it as a patch version because I'm not going to put bug fixes on that previous minor version, no matter how many times people give me patches. So that's why semantic versioning is kind of a, is it a real thing? Because you have to stick to it. Like if you make a new major version, that means you're kind of committing to backporting patches to the previous minor. So I know like at Drupal Commerce what we did is, let's like 9.3 came out. I think we dropped 9.1 and 9.0. And we were just like, look, these are old. We'll support 9.2 still because not everybody jumped up. But like Composer Update won't download the new version of Drupal Commerce because Composer says it doesn't work.
So what you just said, I think, is more aggressive than I was even thinking.
Okay.
I don't see a lot of what you're talking about in the contrib space. I don't see a lot of people dropping support for previous versions until they are forced to by some kind of deprecation. So you're suggesting, you know, not necessarily on day 1, but you're saying even if I'm committing a bug fix that is unrelated to 9.1 support, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, I don't want to support that at this point because it's insecure.
I guess I'll refine that a little bit. I
like what you're saying. By
yeah,
the way.
I'm just trying to remember our commerce one. I think it's when we were creating like our own like plugin form system, and then Tim Plunkett was doing layout build, and it was like, we need this in Drupal core. And I think in whatever 8. version, plugin forms came out, and then after the next minor, we're like, look, we don't want these like deprecation layers anymore, so we're going to drop. We did something of that sort. So it's kind of like, yeah, if you don't need to drop it, don't. But if there's that really cool thing because you're one of the bigger modules, then make that call. Like, make your life easier as a maintainer. There does need to be a bridge between maintainers, making life easier for end users, but then also just making it easy to maintain software. There's a good balance in between. And the big takeaway is be nice to the person on the other side of the screen, because it's we're all doing our best and trying hard. So, yeah. One more.
Keep in mind that it's nice to keep your Drupal project up to date, but you do have people that get a site that hasn't been maintained, and so they've got to bring it up to par with all the PHP version changes and everything else. The more you have to upgrade each module, if you have a lot of modules, it's a nightmare to keep on stepping through all that you need to do to get to that point.
Yeah.
And if you can reduce the number of steps for a module that needs to be upgraded, it's simpler for that, as well as the people migrating. I mean,
Yeah, and then the statement was keep your stuff updated, short of it. And I can say that as somebody who had an upgraded Drupal site from 8.3 to 8.9 on Pantheon with lots of commits and lots of environment switching. And that's not a one-off. Like, some people just don't pay for website maintenance until they have to. So there are lots of sites like that. And that's where I want to make life easier for the agency that gets that thrown at them. Sure, they could do time and hours, but as a developer, is that really how you want to spend your time? No. So that's why I want to make life happy for everybody. All right. Well, thanks for coming. It was great.